Treasures of the Titanic are on display in Chicago. The crowds are incredible. We'll talk live with one of only 5 living survivors of the shipwreck on the 88th anniversary of the disaster. Today is the 88th anniversary of the Titanic disaster. Nearly 1,500 people perished when the ship went down, and today there are only 5 known survivors left. And one of them is with us this morning. Melvina Dean was just 9 weeks old when her family boarded the Titanic, and she joins us now along with salvage diver Ralph White from Southampton, England. Ralph has been down and actually salvaged things from the ship. Good morning, Ms. Dean, Mr. White. How are you?
Good morning.
Morning.
Melvina, sounds like a lot better than it is in Chicago.
Well,
it's actually going to be 74 degrees and sunny today. It's going to be a beautiful day as opposed to foggy London town, not far from you. Ms. Dean, tell us, you don't remember 9 weeks old at the time, but you've gone through life being labeled a Titanic survivor. How has that affected you?
No, I really hadn't gone through life being labeled a Titanic survivor. I was told about the disaster when I was 8 years old, and ever since then I haven't heard anything else about it until they found the wreck. And then I began to become a public image sort of thing. But otherwise, I wasn't brought up with it at all.
And in 1987, I was part of the team that went down and recovered the first artifacts. And you have to understand that the Titanic is 2.5 miles below the surface. It is totally pitch dark down there, and the only thing you can see is what is illuminated by the small lights on our 3-man submersible. So you come up on this kind of a ghostly, eerie image on the bottom of the ocean that finally takes form and shape, and you're on probably the most famous shipwreck since the Ark. And nobody that has dove the Titanic has come away without being very reverent of what happened that eventful night and the amount of lives that were lost on this one shipwreck.
People are literally flocking to the Field Museum here in Chicago, Museum of Science and Industry. Museum of Science and Industry here in Chicago to see the exhibit of the things that your group helped bring up. What was the most surprising thing to you about the wreck?
I think the fact that it split in half on the surface and literally disgorged what you would consider a small city that covered the full gamut of the extremely wealthy upper class of the period to really the immigrants coming to America to start a new life. There were workman's tools as compared to the very, very fine bone china that was served in first class. At the specific exhibit that is in Chicago, I was there a month ago, and I love what you see when you first come in. You come down this corridor, and the first artifact that you see is the ship's bell suspended there in this very dark room. And I think that gives you kind of the feeling of coming into the artifact exhibition.
Mr. White, were you surprised at some of the things that just survived that many years under the water?
Yes, you have to understand that really the Titanic was the first really, really deep archaeological shipwreck that's been studied by civilians. Prior to that, it was only done by the military and in deep secrecy, and they didn't release a lot of the data. When we first got down to the wreck site, we found newspapers literally laying on the bottom 2.5 miles down. Because there's very little current and no sunlight, there's no marine growth that will erode these artifacts on the bottom. But having been submerged for 75 to 85 years, they have taken in what we call chlorines or salt from the water, and the minute that hits air, it starts a destructive process. So we have to start these artifacts into almost immediate restoration once they hit the surface, and some of this restoration will take years before we can then put the artifacts on exhibit.
I tell you, though, they've done a marvelous job with it, and as I say, people are absolutely flocking to the Museum of Science and Industry. We thank you for your efforts.
Breaking all records.
Exactly.
Yes, it is.
Melvina Dean, we thank you for joining us this morning. Best of luck to both of you.
Thank you.